Thank you, Mr. President. Last week we discussed the first part of the parental rights, and this time additional discussion about syllabi. I want to first reaffirm we strongly support parent involvement in their children's education. They should be actively engaged. Teachers welcome this, embrace it, and it's happening throughout Minnesota now. We raised questions last week regarding what districts, where, amongst the 850,000 students in the schools, where is this an issue? And the response was naming 5 or 6 districts, and I'm prepared to comment on those districts. I know it was a different bill, but it was a part of the whole Bill of Rights. The PTA, in a letter I distributed, the largest parent organization in Minnesota, 101 years, with over 200 chapters, they're opposed to the bill. I hope you read the letter. I hope you talked to members of the PTA. But the bottom line is they said we work in partnership with teachers, with the big emphasis with the T in PTA. And their message was talk to teachers. And that is happening. Other groups also opposed it. Education Minnesota, you do have a letter, testimony from a teacher, amplified that message. You'll hear more from a couple of our members that have over a half a century of classroom experience as to some of the practical problems with implementing it. But I want to assure everyone that parent involvement, teacher engagement is important, and it's happening. Also opposed, for the record, was the Minnesota School Boards Association, the Association of Metro School Districts, as well as the administrative group. They said they didn't need another mandate. It's being done. They also said, let's focus on the moment, the resources that are needed by our schools. More on that soon. In the press conference, and I realize this is a big issue, but in the press conference earlier this year, reference was made to the Rousseau situation, where a parent was being denied information regarding reading information, apparently a 5th grade teacher. And it was in the Star Tribune, and it was used in committee that there's a problem in Rousseau, Minnesota. And I know the Rousseau area, and of course Senator Johnson knows it very well. But just briefly, I have memories going up there, first at the Upper Red Lake, fishing, going up to Badette, War Road, Lake of the Woods, Rainy River. We got to know that area, love it, love the up north. And I also know the pride in that community. And when I heard the testimony that there's parents being denied information, I contacted the superintendent. And I asked, what is happening there? And by the way, I contacted a lot of other school districts, and as I mentioned, these groups, they're opposed. But in Rousseau, no parent was denied information. And I can distribute the letter that I got from the superintendent. I could share a column from the Rousseau Times. But in fairness, I believe that Senator Benson's offered an apology to the Roseau School District, perhaps having the wrong information, because I was told, and I can give you the quotes, they said this was fake news. And there was a staff meeting. The superintendent wanted to know what is happening. They went to the 5th grade teachers. There was a great deal of stress that it was caused. I won't read, the letters, because I contacted them. There were calls that were not returned. But part of the message was, we're 5 hours away, but we matter. In the Roseau School, it's one combined building. So the superintendent, he went right to, he wanted to know who denied information. No, it didn't happen. And Senator Benson, I appreciate there's an apology. I believe it's going to be in the Roseau Times at 1 o'clock tomorrow on the publication, because the reporter shared that with me. And that wasn't just in response where I was bewildered as to why, in this rural community, parents may be denied as a part of the narrative for the Parent Bill of Rights. I reiterate, parents and teachers are engaged throughout Minnesota. Are there controversial issues? You bet. And parents have a right to answers, but just talk. Talk to the teacher. That was our testimony from a teacher in the Farmington School District. But the nuances in the syllabus requirement, it doesn't meet the moment, and frankly, it does not meet the needs that parents, that students, that teachers and staff are asking for our schools. What they're asking for are additional resources. Help is needed. Special education, let's start with that. Nearly 17%, 147,000 Minnesota students are in special ed. And unfortunately, Congress did not live up to their pledge to provide their match for funding. So school districts, and they've identified this as the #1 priority for funding, to fund the cross-subsidy that's done. If the cross-subsidy was addressed, and it's important for students with disabilities and for public education, for students all throughout, and their parents and staff, if it was funded, that would be over $800 per pupil unit. That matters. All of the groups that I talked about said, let's address this. They talked about the subsidy needed for English language learners. Parents responding to this bill said, we need to address the social emotional needs, the mental health needs, the cry for additional counselors, nurses, social workers. These were issues pre-pandemic that have only been exacerbated. The real issue facing us now is additional resources, and we can show that in the targets that we set for our #1 priority, our public schools. We'll look forward to seeing what your budget target is, because I can tell you, and I hope you talk regularly with your school boards, there are budget deficits right now. We can start with Rochester, and we'll go through all of those districts when the bill is on the floor after we see what the budget target's going to be for education. So these are the reasons that people have said they're opposed to Senate File 2666, because it does not meet the moment of the real needs, the challenges that public education faces. I urge you to vote no, and let us focus on the needs of public education. Thank you.